Okay, so welcome everyone. This is the School of Social Ecology, our fall 2023 information session. What I will be covering today is just some information about our application, the statement of purpose, and the personal history statement. I'll be going over some tips on how to write out those statements, and then we'll also have questions at the very end. So again, welcome. I'm glad to have you here. It's 4 p.m. on a Thursday. Hopefully you can stay awake and power through this. So here is my contact information. My name is Iris Castro. I'm the Assistant Director of Graduate Affairs here at the School of Social Ecology. So if you do want to schedule a time to meet with me, I am doing all Zoom appointments. So you're welcome to click on that Calendly link and make an appointment with me or email me directly. And this 949 phone number here is my direct line. It's easier though to just send me an email. I'm much faster at replying versus returning phone calls at this point, okay? So what I'm going to be talking a little bit about today is who we are as a school, our graduate programs, the application requirements and instructions, and then again, just differences between the statement of purpose and the personal history statement, what our programs are looking for when it comes to the applications, and at the end we'll have a Q&A. So just a couple of things to note about our school. We are all about translating basically science driving solutions, right? So our research areas include healthy people and places, crime prevention and social justice, and technology and human potential. So you'll see this really reflected across the board with our 3 departments. So we have criminology, law and society, we have urban planning and public policy, and we also have psychological science. So our programs are pretty interdisciplinary across the board, which is something that you're really not going to see in any other school or any other program. So we do encourage a lot of collaboration. Our faculty have joint appointments across programs and across departments as well, and not just within the School of Social Ecology, but some may have a joint appointment, for example, like in nursing or the School of Medicine or public health. That's pretty common because, again, the research of our faculty is highly interdisciplinary. So I'm going to go ahead and cover the graduate programs that we offer. We have a total of 5 PhD programs. So in criminology, we also have one in psychological science, and we have one in psych science with a concentration in clinical psychology. And we have our PhD in social ecology, which we are currently not accepting applications for because the program is a capacity. But this program, the PhD in social ecology, is very interesting because it's basically a build your own PhD program. So the requirements for this are, in terms of the required classes, it's minimal. It's like 5 or 6 courses, and then the rest is up to you to really build out your PhD. So hopefully we'll be opening this program back up in the next couple of years. So if you are, interested in this, or you know of somebody who might be interested in something like this, feel free to refer them our way. We also have the PhD in urban and environmental planning and policy, and we have 2 master's programs that are on campus and they are full-time. We have a master's in public policy and also a master's in urban and regional planning. We also have 2 online graduate programs, and these are full-time programs of the Master of Advanced Study in Criminology, Law and Society, and the Master of Legal and Forensic Psychology. So both of these programs, they are slightly different in the way that they are built from a curriculum standpoint. We're only required, for example, for our students to take 2 classes a quarter instead of 3. The 2 classes a quarter, is considered full-time. So for example, if you are having to pay student loans, that you can go ahead and say that you are in school full time, and you can put those loans, you can pause them. Okay. So I've also linked here our deadlines and application instructions. These are, very basic steps just to how to fill everything out, what we require, and also listed there are the deadlines. So you're welcome to take a look at that. So go ahead now and start covering the application requirements. So our graduate application is online. So there is one per UC campus. So unlike, for example, the undergrad application, right? You had one application and can apply to multiple campuses. This is not the case for UCI, for at least for the graduate programs. So we do require that you use our portal to apply to our programs. I believe, however, some of our other programs like the MBA, like the business school, they have their own application. So if you are looking to apply also for an MBA, for example, you do need to use a separate application system. So for our application fee, it is $135 for US citizens and US permanent residents, $155 for international applicants. Fee waivers are available for domestic applicants. They are only applicable, however, to state-supported programs. So that means our PhD and master's on campus programs. Okay, so that's what you can request a waiver for, and you can request a waiver for up to 2 programs. And I've gone ahead and linked the information here about fee waivers. One thing to note is I highly recommend that you submit your application at least 1 week before the deadline if you are requesting a fee waiver. So there is a requirement that you submit the fee waiver request 5 days before the deadline, and that means your entire application needs to be submitted. And that's because at the end of the application, when you've filled everything out, there is a section where you can apply for a fee waiver. Okay, so just keep that in mind, especially if you are looking to apply this year. We are kind of holding fast to this rule, so you don't want to miss out. Our application deadlines, especially for PhD programs, they are firm. So once that deadline passes, there's no going back, okay? We also require unofficial transcripts from each college or university attended after high school. We do require that these are uploaded online. So the front and the back, we need to see your name and your university or college's name on there. So the institution name, so we can match up the information and make sure that it's correct and accurate. For our international transcripts, our international applicants, if you've completed your education in an institution where the language was other than English, we do want you to upload the original language and the English translation. And then also for those of you who may be wondering, our evaluations of international transcripts are done in-house. So we do not require or accept, for example, any of evaluations done by WES. Okay, so just something to note, that's usually a service that some applicants pay for to have their transcripts evaluated. We do not require that and we do not accept that. So we do want the originals or a copy of the originals when you are uploading them. And then as a note here, just a quick thing about that minimum undergraduate GPA, we do require that it is a 3.0 overall undergrad GPA to be eligible for admission. Okay, so the English proficiency requirement. So if you all have excuse me, attended one of our info sessions in the past, we have just updated the English proficiency requirement, which is why I am once again hosting an information session, because I want to make sure all students or all prospective applicants know about this. And that change really comes from the waiver section of this. So what this says is all graduate applicants are required to demonstrate English proficiency for admissions consideration. So this is regardless of where you've studied, you need to submit or you need to demonstrate English proficiency. However, to get a waiver from having to demonstrate that demonstration, usually meaning submitting an exam score, right? Either the TOEFL or the IELTS, applicants are waived from the English language proficiency requirement if they have earned an undergraduate or graduate degree from an institution at which English was the sole language of instruction according to the World Higher Education Database. So that is a huge mouthful, okay? So basically breaking this down, what this means is generally if you completed your undergrad or your grad program within the United States, let's say you went to UCI, you completed your undergrad here, you don't need to submit anything with regards to English proficiency, okay? you're totally fine. Go ahead and submit your application as is. No need to submit any additional scores. However, if English is not the only language of instruction listed, or if no language is listed at all, the waiver does not apply, and the applicant is required to take and pass an approved English proficiency test. So for example, we get a couple of Canadian applicants, quite a bit actually. So there is a part of Canada, right, where they speak French. And there are institutions there where maybe the language of instruction is both French and English. So in that case, if you look up your institution on the WHED database and you find that your institution is listed as English and French, then we would need to see either an IELTS or a TOEFL score. Okay, and I'm happy to answer questions about this towards the end of this presentation. And like I mentioned earlier, our acceptable tests, right? So we take the TOEFL, we take the IELTS. So the minimum for the TOEFL is an 80. And I've noted here that the speaking section needs to be a 26 or above to be eligible to TA. And there's also the IELTS, where we require a 7, at least a 7 overall, and no less than a 6 on any section. And the speaking section should be 8 or above to be eligible for a TA-ship. So just a note here, and I have linked this English proficiency flowchart, the TA eligibility is different from admission requirements, okay? It's not all that different, but there are, a couple of other little things to note if you also want to be eligible to TA. Okay, and everyone's favorite, the GRE. So this year, we have several programs that are not requiring the GRE. The GRE for these programs have either been permanently removed or they've never required them at all. So for our PhD in psych science and our PhD in clinical psychology, our PhD in urban and environmental planning and policy, our MERP program, our MAS program, our MLFP program. Okay, so not required. If you feel the need to submit the GRE, you can. However, it's not readily accessible on our application, just our view of the application, because we don't require it. So we're gonna have to look for it, right, if you submit a GRE score. So for that purpose, I mean, I really wouldn't submit a GRE for these programs unless you really want to. Okay, some of them will see them, some of them will not, but for the most part, they're not going to look at the GRE when they're starting to decide on who to offer admission to. When they start the evaluation process, the GRE is not really going to be part of that conversation, because it wouldn't be fair to others who did not submit a GRE because it was not required. Okay, so our one program that requires the GRE is the PhD in Criminology, Law, and Society. So unfortunately, there are no waivers or exceptions when it comes to the CLS program. So for example, if you've taken the LSAT because you're also applying to graduate school, you also will need to submit the GRE for the CLS PhD program. Okay, so for the GRE in our Masters of Public Policy, so we have proposed this policy for the GRE, and we are hoping to, get this finalized in the next couple of weeks, and we will be posting that final requirement on our website. So the plan is for the GRE to be recommended, but not required, for any student that has completed all the requirements for their high school diploma, bachelor's degree, or an advanced degree, okay, or like a master's, in an educational institution where the primary and or dominant language of instruction is English. So this is very similar to the English proficiency requirement. So generally, if you're not submitting a TOEFL and IELTS for the public policy, you also don't need to submit a GRE, okay? Because as noted here, all other students are required to complete the GRE before being considered admission into the MPP. Okay, so some more application requirements. We do require 3 letters of recommendation, at least 3, no more than 5. 5 is the max, okay, when it comes to the entries in the application itself. These must be uploaded online, and the link to upload the letter will be sent directly to the recommender after you enter their information into the application. Okay, so what I recommend doing is giving your recommenders a heads up. I say, I think 2 months of lead time is great. 6 weeks, great. Please don't do it a day or a week before, because you do want really strong letters of recommendation. So also, sometimes the link is in an email. The email is sent to the recommender. Sometimes that email gets sent to the spam folder. So if your recommender is not on the lookout for this email, then they might not have access to it at all, and you'll have to resend it again. So that's why I give them a heads up, let them know that it's coming, so that they can check their email, they can check their spam filter, and they can submit that recommendation on your behalf. Okay. So we do require both the statement of purpose and the personal history statement. Not all programs do on, at UCI, but our programs in the School of Social Ecology, we require both. And then also I'm going to go over a little bit about, which programs have specific prompts or information that they want the applicant to include. So a resume or a CV is required of some programs. And so like the MPP, the MAS, the MLFP, they do want to see a resume or a CV. But typically applicants are going to upload a CV or a resume as a supplemental document, even if it isn't required. So when in doubt, just go ahead and submit it. And also it is okay to upload your resume in the CV section of the application. So it's, to us, as in terms of just the application portal itself, CV and resume are interchangeable. So obviously they're not like in actual practice, but just that section of the application, feel free to upload either one. So some other resources that I do want to point your attention to. So the graduate division has a lot of frequently asked questions. So basically anything you'd ever want to know, it's probably going to be in there. So if you do have, other questions, feel free to look at this webpage. If there's a question in there that's not covered, feel free to come to me. And then I've also linked the English proficiency policy for teaching assistants, because I'm sure, especially those of you who are applying to one of our PhD programs, I'm sure you're curious about this. Just as a note, for our PhD programs, they are fully funded through normative time to degree. Typically, we offer teaching assistantship to make sure that students are covered financially for the entire degree. Again, that's through normative time. So that typically with that teaching assistantship comes your tuition and fees that are covered, health insurance, and then also you do get a stipend during the academic year. Excuse me. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and go into the statement of purpose and the personal history statements. Like I mentioned earlier, both are required. So we're going to first cover the MAS statement of purpose, because they do have a specific prompt that they want the applicant to write to. So for the statement of purpose, if you are applying to the MAS, they want you to detail current goals and specifically how and why the MAS program will help you achieve them. Okay, so typically this has to do with career goals. So you want to outline, why the MAS program is going to help you achieve those goals. And they also want you to describe a potential capstone paper topic, including what you intend to study, why this subject is of interest to you, and how the topic relates to the MAS curriculum more generally. So obviously you do have to do a little bit of research. You do have to take a look at the classes that the MAS requires, and try to think of, something that you are interested in studying, right, as part of this capstone paper. So like it says here, in lieu of a thesis, students are required to take the course Social Problems, Law and Policy in the winter quarter of the second year of study, which also serves as a capstone or summary course in which a research paper is completed. And for the statement of purpose for the MAS, they require no more than 800 words. Okay, so 800 words max. So for the MAS personal history statement, again, they have a specific prompt. Applicants should follow the prompt. They want you to describe your previous professional and academic achievements. So this is a 600-word maximum. Okay, so 600 words, no more than that. Highly recommend that you type this out in Word and then you copy and paste. Okay, please don't try to save your statements in the application portal itself. It's always a little tricky to do that. You don't want to lose any information. Okay, so our psych science PhD programs, both the clinical and the non-clinical, they do encourage students to include this information as they're writing their statements. So for the statement of purpose, they do want to know what faculty members you're interested in working with. And they also want you to describe your background, research experience, current and future research interests, future goals, and how you see yourself fitting into the department. So here you'll notice, again, you need to do some research, right? Take a look at the website, take a look at the curriculum. Please speak to our graduate ambassadors who are currently in the programs. Get this information and make sure that it comes across that you've done your research as you're writing your statements. Okay, so for the personal history statement, they want you to describe, and they've, gone ahead and even included some sentence limits here. So any experience you have in advocating for diversity in organizations or communities of which you have been a member, a significant challenge you have faced, and your ability to demonstrate resilience and achievement despite those challenges. And then also your interest in an academic career in teaching and research. So just something to note here, you are not limited to just 5 sentences, 7, 5, like this is going to be like a 20-sentence statement. So you're not limited to those 20 sentences, give or take. They just want you to talk a little bit about, all of these points. You can still use the full text box if you'd like. So the maximum of the text boxes is 1,200 words max. Okay, so they just want to make sure that you take your time in the body of the personal history statement to also mention these things. Okay. All right, so let me just go ahead and get into the statement of purpose versus the personal history statement. Okay, so the statement of purpose is expected to focus on your academic or research background and interests, while the personal history statement is expected to focus on your personal background. So basically, the statement of purpose highlights the goals and experiences related to the research area or program/profession you plan to pursue. So it's about your work, you as a scholar. Okay, that's the big thing. So it's academic in nature. The statement of purpose needs to be related somehow to academics, to your preparation for graduate study, to the program that you want to pursue and your preparation for that program. Again, 1,200 words max. Highly recommend that you copy and paste. So for the personal history statement, it is an opportunity for the review committee to learn about the unique qualities and perspectives you'll bring to the program. So it's about you and how you'll contribute to the diversity of ideas if you are admitted. And again, 1,200 words max. We recommend copying and pasting. So here are some things to think about when you are writing your statement of purpose or brainstorming. So academic plans and research interests, relevant experience, your academic background. So really big thing is that programs want to make sure that you're prepared for graduate study. So how, what have you done to do that, right? Mention the classes that you've taken, mention any experiences that you've had in relation to this. And we also want to know about your academic accomplishments, and then what could you contribute to the program? So maybe certain skills or experiences that, again, make you unique. Future career goals, you can mention this briefly. I think the biggest thing, though, is why is the program a good intellectual fit for you? Because all programs want to know that you're a good fit for the program because you've done your homework, you've done your research, and you're going to tell them why you're going to thrive in this program, because their end goal really is to make sure that you graduate, right? So if they admit a student who really is not going to be a good fit for the program, then everyone is going to have a difficult time, right? The applicant or the student is going to have a hard time because they don't like the program, or, you know, they're in the program thinking it's going to lead to something different. And the program itself is like, no, this is what we offer. And we want to make sure that everyone is happy and is able to thrive in the programs that they choose. So the personal history statement, what should you discuss? You don't have to discuss all of these things, but you can use these points as something to jump off of. So any educational, familial, cultural, economic, or social experiences or opportunities relevant to your academic journey, any challenges or obligations you've had to address in order to achieve your educational goals, and how you address them. So an example of this that I like to give is, let's say that you did not do well, right? In maybe a semester or a quarter, your first year of college, right? Talk about that, you know, very briefly describe, you know, what happened, what the effect of that was on you, and then also describe how you overcame those challenges and eventually started to do really well in college. Right. And that's kind of a typical story, especially with, you know, some applicants who may not even have the 3.0 minimum GPA. But there are instances where, you know, we admit students with less than a 3.0, and that's typically because they, you know, they explained to us, for example, they were in the wrong major. Once they figured out what the right major was for them, they really thrived and they did really, really well. So we want to also see that upward trend when it comes to your transcript. And then also any prior employment, like as a student or as a working professional. So anything relevant to the pursuit of your graduate degree. And then perspectives, activities, goals that may contribute to inclusivity and or broaden your understanding of experiences of diverse groups of people. So leadership, outreach, or community service experiences and goals that have or will benefit others or the community. So some general tips. So if you really don't know where to start, just start reflecting on the experiences that you've had that maybe change your perspective or motivation. So there's an example that, you know, one of our faculty usually gives about his own experience in entering an urban and regional planning program. And it's like this class that he took as an undergrad, you know, realized that he really enjoyed things like within urban planning and how much of a positive impact he can have if he were to become an urban planner. And he talks about that all the time, especially to prospective applicants. So we just want to know what inspired you to pursue a graduate degree. And then also, you don't need to be an expert, right? We don't, you know, you don't have to use all of the terms, right, in that specific field. We'd prefer to know what you're motivated to learn about. Okay, so you can also describe like a dilemma or a problem that you encountered. You know, how did you deal with it? How did it affect or change you? But again, you would need to relate this to your, you know, a future graduate school experience or your desire to enter graduate school. Then also, please remember your audience, right? So faculty and staff are reading this. So just think of like, how much do you want to share? If you were admitted to the program, would you be okay with, you know, the faculty and the staff there knowing that information about you? Because sometimes some students are like, well, I don't want them to know that I went through this. Then it's okay. You don't have to include that at all. But just kind of be mindful of that. You know, if you're comfortable with the information that you're sharing, then by all means, please do. I always recommend just make sure that it is somehow relevant to your pursuit of graduate studies. So you can check yourself that way. It's like, well, why am I talking about this? Is it related to why I want to go to grad school? If it is, then yes, go ahead and talk a little bit more about it. So you don't have to be overly formal. It is okay to use I statements. Be direct and respectful. And as always, please avoid inappropriate humor. Sometimes it just doesn't come across, especially in written form, and especially when, basically strangers are going to be reading your statements. So they may not know you, and of course they're not going to really know you, but they won't know, your type of humor and what you're trying to get across. So that's why it is best to just be direct and respectful as you write these statements. And then obviously don't include irrelevant information. Your space is very limited, so use it wisely. And again, does the information you include have a clear connection to your pursuit of the graduate degree? What purpose does it serve? Okay, so just ask yourself that if you are in doubt about what to include in your statements. Okay, next steps. I have spoken about our application workshop dates before, but let me go ahead and explain them now. So application workshops are something that our school offers to prospective applicants to any one of our graduate programs. And this is an opportunity for someone to get questions answered about their application. And you can also get feedback on your essays. So you do have to upload your statements before the workshop, but we will have feedback ready for you once you come to the workshop itself. So it is run by our graduate student ambassadors. Registration is required. All of our dates are now posted. I'm pretty sure we still have spots left, but please register early to save your seat. They will start next week and will run through the end of November. And then, like I mentioned earlier, you're welcome to schedule a Zoom meeting with me if you do have, very specific questions. And then also our graduate ambassadors are available for any help or any questions that you may have. Okay, so feel free to send them an email, send them some questions, and they're really going to be able to talk to you about the graduate student experience here at the School of Social Ecology. All right, I will go ahead now and take some questions. I'm gonna, excuse me, stop sharing and we can start with this question in the chat. And I'm also gonna go ahead and stop recording